From a distance, this pond in the community of Little Harbour near Lower Lordways may look innocent enough, but for local residents like Teresa Clemens, and for summer visitors like Marnie Hoover, who's been coming here for the past 14 years, it's not quite the same as they remember it.
As a young child, this was a full pond. Wintertime was our skating pond. Summertime, it wasn't unusual for my brother, who'd come from Halifax, to borrow a little skiff, and he'd get out into the middle of the pond and sit there all day fishing. Wasn't a lot of fish in it at the time, but you could fish. There was muskrat. There were all kinds of ducks with their families that were here all year long. And that was like for the longest while.
But change has come to this little community in eastern Richmond County, much of it to accommodate a growing lobster industry and lobster processing facility nearby. A new breakwater was set up in Little Harbour in 2004, and 4 years later, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans authorized the construction of an organic berm that was designed to control outflow issues between the Atlantic Ocean and the Little Harbour pond.
The outflow from the pond to the ocean had to be changed because it needed to come on the other side.
However, both local residents and visitors noticed a change in the environment of the pond in the years following the installation of the berm in 2008. Marnie Hoover started coming to this area around that same time. From her property just above the mouth of the Little Harbour pond, she can easily see and smell the difference.
Well, we came here because it was a wonderful little harbor and a close-knit community, and everybody was wonderful and helpful and friendly, and it was just a wonderful little area with the pond here. You weren't right on the ocean, so you were protected in storms. And now with it the way it is, it's unbearable inside our home. We're like, I don't know, 200 feet, 300 feet from the pond, and there are days we can't open the windows, and it's stifling hot, and we don't have air conditioning, so it makes it really unbearable. And it's 24/7. It's whenever there's low tide. Now, there are some fumes that come off during high tide depending on the wind, but when it's low tide, twice a day, it is unbearable.
It was a slow process. When you live in an area and things are happening and you're there all the time, you don't notice the change as much. But gradually you began to notice things like, well, the waterfowl are not there as much as they used to. The birds with their families were not there anymore. You didn't see that muskrat anymore. You couldn't take a skiff out into the pond anymore, but that's been for quite a while. And then sometimes my husband and I walk a lot. We'd often walk to the wharf and we'd say, oh my God, what a smell today, and then still not think anything about it. But then, boom, all of a sudden, holy cow, this is ridiculous, it's definitely unbearable. And that's where we are now. This last few weeks have been really horrible because it's been so hot and so humid, and a little wind off of the ocean just kind of waves it right up to you. I'm up on the hill up there now, and we still smell it from up there, and we can't sit out front when that's going on. We have to go in behind the house, and it's bearable, but it's still there. It just never goes away.
Despite its small size, Little Harbour gets a lot of visitors and a lot of vehicle traffic. The nearby Lobsters R Us seafood processing facility sells cooked and pre-cooked lobsters to hungry visitors and locals alike. During non-pandemic times, this same facility hosts a Celtic Colors community event every October. And apart from being busy during lobster season, in the summertime, the Little Harbour Breakwater is busy on 2 occasions. During the Lordways Acadian Festival, when the breakwater and its fishermen partner with the nearby Chapel Cove Harbour Authority for the Blessing of the Fleet ceremonies that begin in Little Harbour and wrap up in Chapel Cove. And just recently, Harbour Wars, a series of challenges taken on the waters of the Atlantic Ocean by fishermen from Chapel Cove and Little Harbour, was a major fundraiser for cancer research and for those who are struggling with the disease. But to the likes of Teresa Clemens and Marty Hoover, the frustration is there because everybody who comes to any of these events always has the same reaction.
Everyone that comes by has the same kind of comments, like, how do you live here with the smell? It's just horrible. And people will want to come here to those activities. The worse this gets, it's so that's our concern too, is for tourism here for the little community.
By 2019, Hoover, Clements, and their Little Harbour neighbors had had enough. They went door to door, mobilizing community residents, and then, armed with their support, contacted several levels of government, including municipal, provincial, and federal. They went several months without getting a response before finally getting some action from the Federal Department of Fisheries and Oceans.
We did get a response from DFO, from Paul Gentile, and his co-worker in small craft harbors, Brenda Alexander. And they came, hired a group of engineers to come down, and they did a study of the pond and drew up plans, 3 different plans of how they feel that it could be fixed or remediated and taking care of the seaweed and stuff that's left. They picked one that they thought was the best, and it was the amount was $191,000 at that time to do the work. Now, at that point, DFO said, we can't fund this. So they suggested we try different levels of government to try and get funding from someone else. But they had approved the plan, just they couldn't fund it. They didn't have the money in their budget to do it.
Undaunted, Hoover, Clements, and their neighbors took their concerns to Liberal MP for Cape Breton-Canso, Mike Kellaway, in a conversation that seemed to get off on the right foot.
He stood here one day and told us that he would stand by us through this whole thing and ensure that we got the funding for the remediation of the pond. He said that there was probably about 10 of us here that day, so there's lots of witnesses. And he said that they may not be able to get it all from one department in the government, but there were other avenues.
However, when the latest federal budget was approved in June, there was disappointment for Little Harbour residents.
We did not hear back from Mike Kellaway at all. We've heard no more from him. Nothing to either of us directly about his statement that he was going to coordinate the funding and work with other departments for us. It's just, he's like he disappeared.
Here at Telile 24/7, we reached out to Mike Kellaway, now running for re-election as a Liberal candidate for Cape Breton-Canso, to give some clarification on exactly what he pledged and what has come from those pledges in terms of cleaning up the Little Harbour tidal pond.
What I was looking to see was what items might be available in the new budget around providing some remediation to fix the problem, but also then repurpose that area for whatever the municipality would be looking at in terms of, whether it be a park or whatever the case may be, a tourist attraction and whatnot. So what I've been doing is working with the municipality directly and looking at ways that we can be inventive to find some funds, because there wasn't a direct fund on the remediation of tidal ponds in the budget. There were small craft harbor funding and a plethora of other type of funding announcements. But I've been around long enough to know that you need to build coalitions to get funding sometimes. And so working with the councillor of the area, Brent Sampson, and Amanda Mummerked, I think we have a pathway to a solution utilizing some funding that, if approved by the municipality, will get us to a better place than we are now. But there's no mistaking it. It's unacceptable. The aroma is intense at times, and folks have to live there and experience that. No one should. So, I think in a different time, certainly COVID kind of prevented us from kind of doing a much deeper dive on it. But it is a top tier issue for me, top tier issue for the community, and if those folks know that I'm pretty inventive and pretty focused on getting that job done.
Speaking to Telile 24/7 early on Thursday afternoon, Kellaway also disputed a rumor that's been floating around the community that Ottawa has secured $40,000 in the recent budget to be able to get the tidal pool cleanup work going, and he also insisted that he has been in contact with Marty Hoover over the whole situation.
Marty did send a letter to the editor, and then she sent it to me, and I followed up to say thank you for sending it. We're continuing to work our angles and trying to get things done. And I think those folks know firsthand of the work I'm doing, and it's not laying on a desk somewhere. It's not how I roll. I'm a community developer, and sometimes things take longer than you wish. But always available to talk to Marty and folks there, and they know that. And I've talked to other people as part of the committee or group, other folks that live there. And my number is always available for them to call, and I know that likewise for them.
However the cleanup takes place and whichever level of government is providing the funding, Kellaway agrees with Hoover and Clements that action needs to be taken and has to happen soon.
I've been on the case now probably about a year, trying to find the right mechanisms by which to fund the progress, but I think we have some fertile ground to play with, but I'll need to work on it more, and that community knows, the community of Little Harbour knows where my work ethic and commitment lies, and I wish it could be sooner. God knows I wish it would be sooner, and I'm making every effort to try to fix it.
In the meantime, Hoover and Clements are continuing to reach out to other public officials, including recently elected Richmond MLA Trevor Boudreau and the Conservative candidate for Cape Breton-Canso, Fiona McLeod.
But you had the same kind of ideas that Mike Kellaway had, that it probably will have to be funded through various different ministries because of the cost of $191,000. She also questioned the money that has been set aside for the harbor to have the wharf repairs done was something like $1.5 or $2 million, and she asked us if we knew if any of that money was supposed to go to the pond, and we said we had heard nothing about it coming towards the pond. So she said that that would be something that she would definitely look into if she was elected, that she feels that maybe some of that funding could come this way for the pond while they're here, while the equipment's here, while the stone is here, and the cement guys and whatever else needs to be done.
It's almost as if it's a hopeless case because no one really wants to help us with this. It's all, okay, yeah, we'll do what we can, but do what we can means absolutely nothing unless you're actually doing something.
Now, one thing Hoover and Clements want to make clear as they seek to get the tidal pond cleaned up in Little Harbour is that they don't hold the local seafood processing facility, Lobsters R Us, responsible for what happened to the Little Harbour pond after the berm was put in 2016. As well, they're not expecting the company to put forth any of the funds required to clean up the tidal pond. That responsibility will be falling to the federal government if Hoover and Clements have their way.
This is a federal government problem, not a Lobsters R Us problem, or not a Little Harbour or provincial. But so it has to, I would say, come from the federal government and let it trickle down to the other agencies that can also put in their money or their 2 cents or their whatever it is to give us a hand at doing something with this. We're not working to put blame on anyone. We're 100% in favor of Lobsters R Us and all the people who are behind it. It's a good thing. It's an excellent thing for the community, and we don't want anyone to go thinking that we're against that. We are not. We want this mess fixed up for our health and for the benefit of our community. That's where we're at right now.
So for the time being, the aroma and the frustration will continue for residents of Little Harbour. Marty Hoover says that she's surprised, given her positive impression of Cape Breton, that its elected officials might treat this issue the way it's been treated over the past few years. And in the end, she and Teresa Clements feel there's only one way for action to happen.
Yeah, I think they need to send someone here to come and see this pond.
And smell it.
And smell it, yeah.
In Little Harbour, for Telile 24/7, I'm Adam Cook.